In the 80s, the pervasive attitude beat the Japanese car companies. Asian Americans just collateral damage, you might say. It's different now. New Asians, more Michigan Asians yet to learn about Vincent Chin and what went on around here.
I decided, well, I think I'll buy a Toyota. This is in the 80s, right?
New car prices may never be lower, so now's the time to buy.
Because it was cheap and the same place that was selling Chevys and Chryslers and things were selling Toyotas. So I didn't think much about it. But.
See your Toyota dealer. He's got what it takes.
The car ran fine until it didn't. Arthur Park took it to a mechanic.
You find out what's wrong with my car? And he said, yes. I said, what? He said, it's shot. Oh, what do you mean? No, somebody shot it. Somebody shot the battery of your car. So there's some of that anti-Asian sentiment.
Arthur Park, Korean American, joined Detroiters taking action for Vincent Chin. The group leading the fight, the American Citizens for Justice. Asian American activism, not a new thing, goes back to the 1960s, the Vietnam era. But mostly then it was a West Coast thing, because that's where most Asian Americans lived. Protesters, mostly draft age, being asked to go kill other Asians.
It was young folks. What made the Vincent Chin case different is it brought together the first-generation immigrants, their American-born children. It brought together the Mandarin-speaking and the Cantonese-speaking, the suburban and the inner city. It brought together Chinese Americans and Japanese Americans who knew, there it is again, you all look alike.
Frank Wu, president of New York's Queens College, grew up in suburban Detroit.
The Vietnam War was a raw wound. And if you had this color of skin, texture of hair, shape of eye, you had the look of the enemy. You had the look of the enemy from World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, from all of these conflicts that people remembered well.
The killing of Vincent Chin less than a decade after the fall of Saigon. In Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan, they're talking activism then and now.
I think the start of Asian American Studies, or a class in the American Studies program. So those kind of gradually occurred later on in the 70s.
Parker Wu, campus activist. He joined the American Citizens for Justice, living history to students today.
So I was already a sophomore in college when I was starting to become more aware of Asian American history and activism.
Learning about Vincent Chin was one of my earliest experiences, an exposure to any semblance of Asian American history.
And I remember reading this poem about Vincent Chin and being wrecked by it, and going back to my mother asking, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that this had happened, that it happened so close to us?
That was a big turning point in my life when I realized there was Asian American history, not only broadly, but specific to Southeast Michigan, specific to Detroit.
And so for this not to ever come up in the conversation, I was a little bit astounded. And I think that she was trying to protect me in a way.
When I asked my parents if they had heard of Vincent Chin, that my dad finally disclosed the instances of racism he faced as a Korean American engineer in the auto industry. And the story he told me involved an exchange of words that was really akin to "because of you, MFs," the infamous words from the Vincent Chin story.
I think the younger generation needs to learn maybe certain things in the past. They need to learn the struggles that we went through as older activists and so forth, the kinds of difficulties that we had trying to maintain people's awareness, keeping information flows, and things like that.
Today, with 24 million Asian Americans, it's possible for, Fujianese not talking to Mandarin-speaking people, not speaking to Cantonese, just within the Chinese American community. Back then it was very clear, if we didn't stand together, we wouldn't have a voice.
The situation there was very bad, don't get me wrong. I know that the unions would have these car bashing. We pay $1, you took a sledgehammer, you could hit a Toyota or whatever in a parking lot at a rally. But as bad as that was, I don't think the atmosphere then was nearly as bad as it is right now. It wasn't as pervasive as we have at this point. You've got a lot more attacks. You've got political figures and other people that are just legitimizing that kind of behavior.
Kung flu, yes. Kung flu.
It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I think we're going through a very, very trying cycle, social behavior, and the political dialogue between the trade war with China, COVID, and the fact you have this white nationalist movement running rampant.
The Vincent Chin case was a precursor to everything that we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic. When the violence first started to happen, Asian Americans would remark, this isn't new. It's only the awareness of it that's new.
Then it happened March last year. The Atlanta spa shootings, 6 Asian women gunned down, leading to perhaps the biggest Asian American rally here since the Vincent Chin days.
And it was just an overwhelming number. Like, I did not think that many people were going to be there.
To be here gathered today in unity, but unfortunately for such a devastating purpose.
Sina Vang and her friend Zora Bowens led the rally, the first of a few around the city, rooted in the George Floyd protests the year before.
It was really nice to be able to bring so many people together that really cared about a cause, about stopping hate and just unity in general. It was definitely a big first time for a lot of the older generation there, and it was nice to have them come out, especially when the older Asians have been like such a big target in all of the hate crimes. I remember a lot of them coming up to us and just thanking us.
How to keep this going, keep people together? Around here, different communities are dispersed across the region. Detroit had a Chinatown once. Its last vestige is seen in the film Who Killed Vincent Chin? By then, most of the Chinese had moved to the suburbs. Now, more Asians. A mosque in Warren, South Macomb County, just north of Detroit, Bangladeshis, the highest concentration of them in the U.S. outside of New York. They're also on the east side, a Detroit neighborhood called Banglatown, and in Hamtramck, the once Polish enclave surrounded by the big city. This vaccination clinic's part of a program coordinated by Eastern Michigan University.
Say Hamtramck. Can you say Hamtramck?
Dr. Tzu-Yin Wu is connecting Asian Americans in a different way by promoting better health care.
As a Taiwanese American, I know that sometimes it's not the best to be the smaller group because you get overlooked and people don't know you even exist.
Are you Dr. Wu?
I feel like it's my mission. I guess, early days, I had some sort of breast issue, and I was in my very early age of my life, and I feel like I was all alone, and I was in a doctoral program of nursing, and I should have all the solutions. If I have all those capabilities and I cannot do it myself, what about those people in the community who just came to the United States and did not have anyone to go to? I feel like, hey, as a researcher, I need to find a way. I need to find a way to support especially the most underserved communities in Asian Americans.
Dr. Wu's program operates across the state. In Battle Creek, Southwest Michigan, a gathering at the Burma Center.
If you look around today, all of us came from Burma. Most of us here, this room won't be almost empty if refugees didn't come here. And refugee to me is a great thing because that's freedom.
I have a lot of experience that when I introduced myself that I'm from Burma, and then it was like, Burma? Where's that country?
Burma, or call it Myanmar, by India and China, more than 3,000 Burmese settled in Battle Creek now.
It's all based on social connection. So we got Battle Creek has been very accepting to immigrants like us.
So back in 2007, we have a huge military coup.
Par Maui, refugee, the keeper of books, stories of Burma and Battle Creek. Last year, she became a U.S. citizen.
And then I have no choice to living there, so I have to leave.
We were discriminated based on our religion and also for ethnicity. We're a minority ethnic group in Burma.
The Burmese here, they're Chin people, mostly Christian with their own culture of many in that country.
They sent me to Houston, but it's a big city and I don't think that I can survive there, so I choose living in Barrow Creek because it's a huge Burmese community here, so we can help each other.
Here in America, we just drive cars, so we never move anymore, and then we just eat, and all the things that we eat don't go anywhere. Health is a priority. And the reason we're here today is, diabetes. When these people come to this country, they have no insurance, they won't go to see doctors, they don't even think about doing any cancer screening like you have to do the colorectal or, breast and mammography. And the awareness, if we know that there's some groups out here, Burmese, Bangladesh, Nepali, Bhutanese, smaller groups, and we could work each other, support each other, and I think that's very important.
Madison Heights, another mostly white working/middle-class inner-ring Detroit suburb, but here, the past couple of decades, a change to this city.
I think that Madison Heights, for quite a while, has been not just our Chinatown, it's been our unofficial Asian town of Metro Detroit. And then where we are here, which is John R., and it's just south of 14 Mile, this strip, this area, really is our unofficial Asian town of Madison Heights.
Usually when people want to come down for Asian food, they come to Madison Heights.
Kevin Chai works with his family at a Taiwanese bakery. Lots of specialty items. The most popular?
Probably the pork bun. It's like the Chinese barbecue sauce with the roast pork in it. It's probably our most popular. There was a while where there's a lot of Chinese immigrants. I think mostly from just like mainland China. Probably coming here for school work.
Since then, more Asians from different places.
I'd say about a lot of Vietnamese, Filipino, and Chinese.
Just behind us across the street, that way, is 168 Asian Mart. It is the largest Asian Mart in the state. I mean, they have everything. Like attracts like. So we have Asian businesses who see that this is a really great place to be. They see how welcoming the city is, and they see the kind of business that they can get, that they're going to get the foot traffic. So they're just setting up around it.
Michigan's Asian experience. How can you know if there's no one to tell you?
I just want some of these people to know the truth of what happened to us in World War II, which was not right.
Mary Kamidoy, an American Citizens for Justice activist since the 80s, speaking to sixth graders at Detroit Prep on the city's Near East Side.
And my dad was one of 13 people that came to Kalamazoo, Michigan to just get out and do something worthwhile. Even today, because when I go to middle schools, I have 7th and 8th graders ask me, how can you speak English so well? I said, because I don't know anything else to speak. Oh. Well, how long have you been here? I said, all my life.
Kamidoy, in her early 90s, spent the war years incarcerated in an internment camp only because her parents came from Japan.
Even at an 11-year-old, I remember all of this thinking, my goodness, they treated us like we were cattle. But, this is how we were treated at the time when they were going to evacuate us out of our homes.
The last of a generation. Here's history from someone who lived it.
Now that I'm older and all, and I've lived through it, and I've accepted a lot of it, but I haven't forgot a day of it.
Which brings us back to Vincent Chin, where Asian Americans and Michigan history intersect.
It turns out that my dad was actually at one of the first rallies in 1983, but I don't think I really had conversations with my parents about it until much later. Of course, learning about what happened to Vincent Chin, I think that sort of sparked a lot of my interest in wanting to work on civil rights issues, realizing that there was, many, many issues going on that we need to continue to fight for.
State Senator Stephanie Chang has introduced a bill requiring Asian American history in Michigan schools, part of a package of laws covering other people's history too.
So we have actually been pushing for our bills, which are about teaching not just Asian American history, but Latino history, Indigenous history, Arab and Chaldean history, and Black history within all of our schools, because we know that so many of our marginalized communities we are not learning about that history.
So there's precedent?
Lawyer and longtime American Citizens for Justice leader Roland Wong teaches Asian American issues at the University of Michigan. While some are getting it in college, he believes more needs to be done at the K-12 level.
What students are getting are snippets of incidents, whether it is the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, and that may warrant a couple of paragraphs, maybe a little bit about the Exclusion Act, but I doubt it. So really, there needs to be a more comprehensive understanding of the contributions and the trials and tribulations of the Asian American community woven into U.S. history.
The Exclusion Act, the U.S. barred the Chinese from our shores from 1882 to 1943, if you didn't know.
What I think led to the Vincent Chin attacks was really the same things that probably led to the Chinese Exclusion Act and Japanese American internment, that it's this other that is coming in and threatening our jobs and threatening our society.
At Canton High School, west of Detroit, students are getting more of this history because Richard Moy is there to teach it.
I know in our district, in the high school level, it's taught throughout the social studies, right? And that's one of the benefits. I think I share my resources with other teachers.
And we know that our students deserve to know the truth about what's happened in our country, both the painful parts, but also the contributions of communities of color.
The Asian American history law could be like others enacted in Illinois and New Jersey, but with Michigan's legislature controlled by Republicans, that's unlikely anytime soon.
Oh, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm just hoping that you learned something from what I had to say.
When students are learning history, they should be able to see some of their own images in that history, because otherwise it could be viewed as not relevant. You know, if I don't see myself in that history, then I'm not a player in the community and in history.
This program is made possible in part by the Center for Asian American Media and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.